Life often feels like a whisper lost in the roar of our own doubts, as though the power we seek lies just beyond the edge of our awareness, waiting to be claimed. Somewhere beneath the surface of every hesitation, every not yet, and every excuse, there exists a reservoir of strength so vast that it can reshape the course of our lives. Yet, for most of us, that inner force remains buried beneath layers of silent beliefs and misinterpretations, its true potential obscured by the noise of self-doubt. Imagine what it would mean to stand firmly in your own power, no longer hindered by the thought that your willpower is a flickering candle destined to burn out at the slightest gust. Picture a life where control is not an obsession but a balanced flow of intention and surrender, where each decision ignites momentum rather than draining your resolve. In those moments, the invisible gravities that once held you back give way to a forward thrust of clarity, resilience, and relentless drive. Over the next 30 minutes, you will discover 5 transformative insights drawn from Tracy's most potent teachings, secrets designed not for reading and forgetting, but for living and unleashing the power already within you. From confronting the silent narratives that anchor your spirit to activating an inner protocol of clarity, emotional calibration, and immediate action, each chapter will provide the keys to unlock new levels of confidence and capability. Listen, allow yourself to absorb these revelations not as distant theories, but as living catalysts for change. Envision each concept weaving into your daily habits, reshaping your identity until you embody the person who commands success rather than chases it. The journey ahead is both an excavation of hidden strength and a celebration of the potential that has always been yours. Let us begin. The silent belief that blocks your inner strength. Deep beneath every doubt and hesitation lies a quiet narrative that whispers you are not yet ready, not yet capable, and not yet deserving of your own potential. This belief takes root early, perhaps in a childhood misstep or a moment of rejection, and from that seed grows an anchor that drags your ambitions into shallow waters. You learn to accept the voice that questions your worth as an inconvenient truth, rather than the falsehood it truly is, and so your resilience remains stifled by the very story you have come to mistake for reality, in the stillness of doubt. That inner critic gains power through repetition, replaying memories of failure as evidence that your future will mirror the past. Each time you confront a new challenge, the familiar refrain reasserts itself, convincing you that stepping forward carries more risk than retreating into safety. Yet this anchoring belief is neither destiny nor unchangeable fact. It is a learned pattern that can be reframed. The moment you shine awareness on its origin, acknowledging the loneliness or fear that first gave it life, you begin to dismantle its grip and reclaim the vast reserves of strength waiting just below the surface. As you confront this silent belief, you discover a paradox. The anchor that once held you down can become the very lever that lifts you higher. By naming the narrative and challenging its every claim, you transform it from a barrier into a catalyst for growth. With each reframed thought, your confidence swells, and the reservoir of resilience within you surges forward, ready to power every intent, every action, and every leap toward the person you were always meant to become. Why your willpower isn't finite. For decades, the prevailing wisdom has been that willpower operates like a muscle on the brink of exhaustion, an energy reserve that depletes with every choice, leaving you vulnerable to temptation as the day wears on. Yet recent scientific discoveries reveal a more nuanced truth. Willpower does not vanish simply because you have made decisions. Rather, it is shaped by your beliefs, mental framing, and strategic focus. When you view self-control as a limited resource, your brain dutifully enlists every ounce of perceived energy, leaving you feeling drained and defeated. In contrast, when you understand willpower as a dynamic process, one that can be amplified through clear intention and targeted cues, you unlock the ability to sustain self-discipline far beyond what you once imagined possible. This shift in perspective hinges on recognizing the interplay between the prefrontal cortex and the limbic system. Each time you consciously redirect your attention, you strengthen the neural pathways that support deliberate action, while easing the burden on the circuits that trigger impulsive responses. Mental cues, simple reminders of your core values, or prompts to revisit your long-term vision, serve as anchors, conserving your self-control by reducing the cognitive friction inherent in decision-making. Over time, these cues become automatic signals for discipline, transforming willpower from a fleeting spark into a steady flame that illuminates every choice. As you integrate this insight into your daily life, the temptation to view willpower as scarce resources dissipates. You begin to experience each act of self-control not as a costly trade-off, but as an opportunity to reinforce the neural foundations of habit and resilience. Willpower ceases to be a vanishing commodity and becomes instead a skill honed through mindful focus, mental reframing, and the simple recognition that true self-control springs not from infinite reserves, but from the clarity of purpose that guides every intention. The paradox of control, surrender to gain authentic power, that in our relentless pursuit of mastery, we often mistake control for power, tightening our grip on every aspect of life until our fingers ache and outcomes slip through the cracks. Yet true influence emerges when we learn to release the illusion of absolute authority and channel our energy with intention. By surrendering the futile quest to micromanage each detail, we paradoxically reclaim the space to focus on what truly matters, allocating our resources toward actions that align with our highest purpose. In that act of intentional letting go, you harness a deeper strength as your mind shifts from resisting the unpredictable flow of events to embracing the creative potential hidden within them. When you cease to fight the currents beyond your reach, you preserve your vitality for endeavors where your impact is genuine and measurable. The tension of forcing outcomes dissolves, making room for clarity and presence. Like a skilled sailor who adjusts the sails rather than wrestling the wind, you learn to steer with the prevailing forces, transforming the elements once deemed adversaries into allies that propel you forward. This art of surrender becomes a source of authentic power, born not from the exhaustion of tight control, but from the wisdom to choose where to invest your focus, will, and intention. As you embody this paradox, you discover that every deliberate release of unnecessary control deepens your capacity to act where it matters most, and that genuine authority springs not from the strength of your grip, but from the grace of your discernment. Point 3. Step inner activation. Protocol. At the core of every extraordinary achievement lies a pattern of activation that shifts intention into relentless momentum. The first step, clarity, illuminates a precise vision of what you seek to accomplish, stripping away the fog of ambiguity that stifles action. When your mind holds a vivid image of the desired outcome, your subconscious aligns to generate ideas, strategies, and energies in service of that goal. Clarity functions like a beacon, directing every thought and gesture toward a singular target, and minimizing the distractions that scatter your focus. The second step, emotional calibration, tunes your inner state to the frequency of peak performance. Emotions act as amplifiers of behavior, and by cultivating feelings of confidence, enthusiasm, and determination, you transform the mechanics of discipline into an almost effortless flow. This calibration occurs through the intentional evocation of stories, affirmations, or sensory anchors tied to past successes, creating a reservoir of empowering energy that surges forward the moment you commit to action. In this state, challenges feel invigorating rather than daunting, and persistence becomes a natural expression of your inner alignment. The third step, immediate action, breaks the inertia of hesitation and cements the preceding two steps into tangible progress. Even the most powerful intentions remain inert without movement, so each moment of inspired clarity and emotional resonance must be followed by a decisive step, however small. That initial act, executed without delay, signals to your neural pathways that your commitment is real, forging a pattern of success that compounds with every subsequent effort. Together, these three steps form an inner activation protocol that launches you from planning to performance at unprecedented velocity. Clarity sets your destination, emotional calibration fuels your drive, and immediate action translates vision into reality. When practiced consistently, this formula awakens the power inside you, converting latent possibility into the unstoppable force of high performance. The invisible gravity of small wins in the vast landscape of ambition. It is easy to overlook the subtle pull of minor victories, dismissing them as inconsequential compared to grand achievements. Yet every modest success, a task completed ahead of schedule, a habit upheld for a single day, a moment of unwavering focus, carries its own gravitational force, tugging your confidence upward and reshaping your self-image. These small wins accumulate like droplets feeding a river, forging an unstoppable current of belief that propels you toward increasingly significant milestones. The true genius of this process lies in its cumulative nature. Each tiny accomplishment signals to your subconscious that you are capable, reinforcing neural pathways associated with efficacy and determination. As you rack up these victories, you establish a pattern of success that conditions your mind to expect growth rather than failure. This invisible gravity draws you ever closer to your loftiest goals, as the momentum created by everyday triumphs builds upon itself, transforming what once seemed distant into an inevitable outcome. Moreover, small wins offer immediate feedback, allowing you to adjust and refine strategies in real time. When you celebrate a minor breakthrough, a clear decision made without hesitation, a moment of emotional resilience in the face of stress, you gain insight into which approaches resonate with your unique strengths. This realignment ensures that your energy is devoted to paths that yield positive results, further amplifying your sense of agency and competence. By cultivating awareness of these incremental victories and consciously acknowledging their impact, you harness an internal force more potent than any fleeting burst of motivation. The invisible gravity they generate becomes the foundation of lasting confidence, turning each day's modest gains into the bedrock of a high-performance life. In this way, the power inside you is unleashed not by one monumental leap, but by an ascending spiral of small, purposeful steps that draw you irresistibly toward your highest potential. Transform anxiety into purposeful energy. When anxiety rises, it often feels like a surge of chaotic energy threatening to derail every plan and cloud every decision. Yet within that intensity lies a hidden lever, an opportunity to redirect the very force that once paralyzed you into a driving power for action. Anxiety, when left unchecked, fuels fear and hesitation, but when consciously channeled, it becomes the raw material for focused determination. By reframing anxious sensations as signals of engagement rather than alarm, you convert nervous tension into a catalyst for purposeful initiative. This transformation begins with a moment of recognition, feeling the familiar rush in your chest, and acknowledging it as a sign that something matters deeply to you. In that instant, you seize the lever, shifting from automatic resistance to mindful direction. The key is to anchor your attention on a precise objective, a next step so specific that it channels the surge of adrenaline into a clear course of action. Rather than allowing anxiety to scatter your thoughts, you harness its intensity to sharpen your focus, using the heightened arousal to enhance performance instead of fueling distraction. As you repeatedly practice this redirection, your brain learns to associate anxious responses with proactive engagement, rewiring neural circuits to expect movement rather than paralysis. Over time, the emotional lever becomes a self-reinforcing mechanism. The more you pivot anxiety into action, the more readily your mind adopts this pattern, and the less power worry holds over your choices. What once threatened to undermine your confidence becomes the very fuel that propels you forward, demonstrating that the energy of anxiety can be transformed into purposeful momentum. In mastering this shift, you unveil a profound truth. The drivers of fear and excitement share the same physiological roots, and by choosing how to interpret and apply that energy, you command an internal resource more potent than any fleeting spark of motivation. The emotional lever thus emerges as a cornerstone of high performance, allowing you to convert the intensity of anxiety into a deliberate thrust toward your highest aspirations. The identity shift. Become the person who commands success. At the heart of every transformation lies a profound shift in self-perception, a moment when you begin to see yourself not as someone chasing success, but as someone who inherently embodies it. This identity shift rewires the stories you tell yourself, replacing doubt and hesitation with an unwavering conviction that success is your natural state. When you internalize the traits you admire, confidence, resilience, clarity, and integrate them into your self-concept, your behavior follows suit, aligning your actions with the person you have chosen to become. Visualizing this new identity is more than daydreaming. It is a strategic exercise in mental rehearsal. By vividly imagining yourself making decisive choices, handling challenges with poise, and celebrating genuine achievements, you prime neural circuits to respond accordingly in reality. Accompanying this vision with affirmations, phrases grounded in decisive, actionable language, anchors the shift in your subconscious, transforming abstract aspirations into concrete beliefs. Each time you repeat these affirmations, you reinforce the neural pathways that support your new identity, making it ever more accessible when you face real-world tests. The final piece of this transformation lies in habit formation, aligning daily rituals with the characteristics of your chosen identity. Whether it is setting purposeful intentions each morning, maintaining the discipline to follow through on commitments, or nurturing a growth-oriented mindset in the face of setbacks, these consistent practices cement your self-image in the tapestry of lived experience. Over time, the convergence of visualization, affirmation, and intentional habits completes the identity shift, ensuring that your newfound authority is not a fleeting performance, but the authentic engine propelling every decision and amplifying your power to command success. Real-world story, from self-doubt to inner authority. Carlos spent years convinced that his greatest enemy was his lack of talent, haunted by the notion that others simply possessed a natural gift he would never acquire. Each time he stepped into a leadership role, his internal critic whispered that he was out of his depth, eroding his confidence until even routine decisions felt like insurmountable trials. Yet when Carlos encountered Brian Tracy's teachings, something shifted. He recognized that the stories he told himself were not truths, but habits of thought that could be rewritten. Armed with the three-step inner activation protocol, Carlos began by clarifying his vision, envisioning himself not as an imposter, but as a decisive guide capable of inspiring his team. He then calibrated his emotions by recalling past successes in small endeavors, a presentation well delivered, a problem deftly solved, building a reservoir of authentic self-belief. Finally, he took immediate action, volunteering to lead a high-stakes project that once would have terrified him. Each completed task, no matter how modest, served as a micro-win that rewired his confidence circuitry. Over months, the hesitant manager transformed into a commanding presence, his inner authority radiating through intentional habits and a self-image anchored in competence that I end this journey through silent beliefs. Neuroscience reframed, paradoxical. Surrender, inner activation, small victories, emotional levers, identity shifts, and a powerful real-life transformation. We have uncovered the 5 secrets that unlock the power within you. These insights, drawn from Brian Tracy's most profound principles, weave together into a cohesive system, one that transcends fleeting motivation and builds an enduring foundation of confidence, resilience, and purposeful action. As you reflect on Carlos's evolution and the tools shared, consider which secret resonates most deeply with your own story. Embrace the challenge to reframe limiting beliefs, rewire your willpower, balance control with surrender, activate your inner protocol, and celebrate every incremental win. By integrating these practices into your daily life, you step into the identity of someone who commands success, converting self-doubt into unwavering authority. Your path to unleashing the power inside you begins now, one intentional moment at a time.